Hi, so hopefully this will be a quick intro. Sorry the video's late, but with the holidays we've had in the UK and some nice weather, plus moving house, looking for other properties, it's been a very hectic time for me. Now I had started the Trumpeter 1/32 scale Grumman Avenger. Started cleaning up some of the upgrade parts, the resin parts, and while looking for some information on this particular subject, I came across someone who'd already built it not so long ago and did a very good job. So it kind of took the shine off the build. So that was put to one side, and then I ended up digging out the Revell 1/32 scale Heinkel. Here we are. So while looking for information on the Heinkel, I made sure I avoided all the videos, just in case. Now someone made the comment about building big kits. Why? Now, if you want to build a decent Heinkel, there's a beautiful 1/48 scale one available out there. Fits beautifully, accurate and very well detailed. So why 1/32 scale? Well, maybe it's that child in me. The fact that we've got these massive plastic parts that you glue together and build even bigger parts. And I think that's what it is, because I think they're going to look great once they're built. Impressive in size. So you'll have to excuse the lawnmower in the background. Sorry about that. I've been trying all day, but everybody's out with the lawnmower. And I've only got today to do this. Now I struggled with the photographs at the end, trying to fit this subject in. So I may do a walk around video of the actual finished build. I don't know yet. You'll have to wait and see when you see this video at the end. So thank you for clicking on this video, and I do hope you enjoy what I've done with the kit. Let's see what's in the box. Decals with a matte finish, nicely printed. Now I had these Ames decals in the box, but I can't for the life of me remember whether they came with the kit or I bought them separately. But they are a vast improvement on the Revell ones. 5 versions here to choose from. Yuck. Typical Revell instructions. Let's look at the bits. Some sink marks on those blades. The detail here is a bit poor, very flat. Some trumpeter type surface detail on the tail parts. These are beautiful big parts, but no rivet detail, which is a shame at this scale. I don't get why we get detail on the small parts but not on the large ones. The clear parts look nice at first glance, but the framework lacks definition. And I don't know whether you can see the slight mottling on the surface here. Not a real issue, for me anyway. Now to aid me in this build, I've brought the comprehensive Montex mask set. A must with that glazed nose. And I've also gone and bought the Quinta Studios Interior 3D decal set. Now for what I paid for this, I was expecting something a lot bigger. So let's take a look at this set. Now I've never used these before, but let's take a quick look at the set. Nice clear instructions. First impressions looking good. Wow, they look amazing. With all that raised surface detail. Can't wait to add these to the interior. So my first job was to release and clean all the interior parts. Then the next thing is to clean off all that raised detail as mentioned in the Quinter instructions. So all the surface detail has been cleaned off, but I need to take a look at the seat next. First thing I noticed is that the seat on the right hand side is extended. I thought of cannibalising the kit part, but decided it would be quicker to make a new seat. Just adding Mr. Surfacer 500 all the way around on the joints. When this is dry, I'll sand the seat to shape. With the seat now sanded, I just need to find a way to use the kit's leg parts. And maybe some beading over the lower seat here. But other than that, the seat is a vast improvement on the kit's offering. Assembling the floor. Monkey! More head scratching around here. There are some oddities around this area that don't make any sense, so builders beware. So I've added some extra detail around the bomb aimers area, all made up of course. I just need to make it look busy. Now Revell has supplied a door around this area here, but I need to add something different, maybe. So the seat is finished, and I ended up cutting the seat legs down to fit. Didn't know whether to add the slot for the harnesses here, but looking at some photographs, it wasn't there. Now another issue with this kit is the infestation of release pin marks. They're everywhere. Now there's a good chance most of this won't be seen, but I've covered most of it up with plastic card anyway, just in case. The bomb housing next. Lots of gaps here, but luckily most of this assembly won't be seen. The bombs are made up, and I've replaced the kit's fin brace parts with some plastic rods. The fitting of the bombs looks like it's going to be a very tight squeeze, taking paint off in the process as well. So I might trim these lugs down to size, or cut them off completely. Next is whether to add rivet detail to the surface of the larger parts, remembering that I can't match the kit's rivet style. So I'm going to start with the fuselage parts first. After finding some very good drawings online that match the kit's panel lines, well, they look vaguely similar. So you can see here I've marked off the frames in pencil along the part, making sure that they're equal in between the kit's panel lines. I want to make sure everything looks okay before committing to the riveting tool. This seemed to be going okay until I came to marking out the stringers. Without going into too much detail, I used the panel lines on the kit to give me my stringer gaps. But in the end, I ended up with far too many. Also, I thought the stringer lines down the length of the fuselage would have all tapered in, a bit like a Zeppelin framework. But looking at the kit's panel lines on top, that wasn't going to happen. So after long deliberation, I decided just to rivet the frame lines in. It needs something. So I'm going to use the Rosy Riveter tool, 0.75. I'd like the 1mm one, but I don't have that to hand unfortunately. So I'm going to leave the rivets off the top of the fuselage until the two halves have been glued and sanded. Now the wings are a lot easier, and cross-reference with the drawings far better. Once again, I've penciled in the increments, then it's a matter of joining them up. By penciling the lines on, making sure that I've stopped where the rivet lines stop, this will make the process of riveting a lot easier. For the inner wings, there was quite a bit of rivet detail on there already, so there wasn't much to do. The only discrepancy I found was that this plate was slightly wider than that on the drawing. So the detail on the wings is finished, and I can glue them together now. But with these large parts, there was a lot of give, flex in them. In other words, I needed to support them internally. After a lot of faff and a few shims on these building blocks, the wings feel a lot more sturdy now. All the tail planes and flappy bits are built. Some of these surfaces are movable, but that's not for me. So back to the bomb aimer parts now, and these parts may be right for this type of Heinkel, but I've seen some photographs where they cover concertina's back, which I think looks better. So out with the plastic card again, and I've made a base plate and an end plate. This will have a handle on it added later, which may be wrong for this type of Heinkel, but I think it looks better. While the plastic card is out, I need to create something for the left side wall, something that's better than this. The right side wall is passable and should be okay. So back to the left side, I've cut out a piece of plastic card and this should give me a blank canvas. The idea is to cut out the two panels on the kit part and add them, along with some other detail, to this side. There we are, finished. The bomb aimer's cover was finished off with kitchen roll and then cut to length. Folded back and then the position was held with PVA glue watered down. Oh, and a piece of Tamiya tape for the handle. Now before I can add paint to this area, I need to make sure it all fits, and at the same time make sure none of the additional bits that I've added under the bomb aimer slot clash with the glaze parts. This will also give me a good indication if I need to add any more work to any more unsightly areas. So I'm ready for the application for the first coat, but first I need to mask off the glaze parts inside. Black down first, and while I had the paint loaded, I did a few other parts as well. Then for my first interior colour, which is a mix of pale green and dark grey. The green just warms up the grey. I'm going to apply this all over, but just leave the darkest corners black. Then I'm going to add a lighter colour of this mix, but this time apply just from above. Here we are with the lighter colour added. Next, I'm going to highlight all the interior detail parts by doing some dry brushing, using this paint. So all the parts have been dry brushed and I just need to seal all this in with a coat of satin varnish. But before I do that, I'll pick out a few details that need painting by brush. So one of the last things I need to do before I can add those beautiful 3D decals is to apply that wash to these assemblies. So I'm pre-wetting the surface first and then applying a wash of Revell black. Now depending on how thin the wash is will depend on how much of that detail surface is brought out. Just being very careful around those mask areas. I don't want any of this paint to bleed through. So with the wash dry, you can see how it darkens the surface, which is not what I really wanted. I should have made the original colour a lot lighter. So I'll show you the cockpit area first before adding the 3D stuff. And hopefully that 3D stuff will really bring this cockpit area out. So I'm going to try these and I'm going to experiment with the magazine drums first. Off camera of course. You can see where I've already sanded the domes off the plastic parts. And these are what I'm going to be adding. So here we go. See you in a second. Well, that was less painless than I thought. And has improved these tenfold. Just need to add the straps on top of them. So now that I know how to apply these, I'm going to show you one or two being applied. Now you can use super glue on these, it says, but I'm playing safe and using PVA glue. Thin down with a bit of water, not too much that it weakens the glue. So I've placed this on a wetted surface. You don't need a lot of water, these release really fast. I found that the 3D decal works better once taken off the backing paper and left to dry a bit. A very small amount of PVA glue is placed on the surface. You don't need a lot, otherwise it will squeeze out everywhere. And it's as simple as that. Just have to let the glue dry. Now it's easy to knock these out of position and worse, knock them on the floor, especially the small ones. I'll show you some clips of the finished application of these, and I think you'll find these are very impressive. I did. Now I struggled with the levers here, very fiddly. They are 3D printed so the colour goes through to the other side. So no folding over like on some photo etch parts. So this is all 3D decals added. And in my haste or excitement, I forgot to add or create a pilot cushion. Sorry. So for the bombs, which I'm not going to go overboard with, as not much, if very little is going to be seen, once again. So over that black, I've painted them an olive green. This green does look darker than it actually is here. You can see here where some of the black areas have been left showing through. Then for the middle of bomb, I'm using pastels, tan and a light grey. Added here willy-nilly. Applied by finger. Then with a greasy finger, the top and bottom are rubbed. No laughing in the cheap seats, please. This is a serious business here. Then with a toothpick, the surface is lightly marked. The last thing, I'm adding are the markings on the bombs. Now I could use the decals, but I'm just going to use Tamiya tape cut to shape. So I'm going to leave adding the bombs to the very end, but I will add the stowage assemblies now. So I can now close the fuselage halves up, not forgetting to take the inside masks off first. I've done that before. I have to add this fragile tail assembly at this point. No doubt I will catch or break it later. Guaranteed. Now this part here I've glued, but it does say you can dry fit it. I'm assuming so you can take it off and see all the hidden detail. Once again, not for me, thanks. So before I start sanding, I've covered up all the openings. Here for the rear tail, I've made a plastic guard, just to keep it safe from me. Next is the lower ventricle. So I'll start with the middle piece and then work outwards. Now thankfully the MG housing clear parts come separately, same for the front. This means that I can add the gun at the very end. So the seams took longer than expected, so just need to finish off the riveting detail on the top and bottom. The undercarriage next and all the relevant parts have been cleaned up. I did try to see where I could build some of this assembly up first, but I found it all a bit faffy. So I've decided to paint all these parts separately. Some of the other smaller bits. Now these parts look very confusing on the instructions, very vague, so I might have to leave them off. So I'm just going to show you a closer look at the parts that I've added to. A couple of strips here added to the bay doors. I never knew these were unequal shapes. You learn something every day. The wheel well bays go together very nicely. You could go to town here, but the gear doors will hide most of this area. So most of the work has been done on the legs. Copper wire and strips of Tamiya tape help add interest here. One of my main concerns here, looking at the instructions, is that you have to prise these parts apart to add the wheel. That looks like fun for later. Black. Now for the main gear colour, I'm going to use this custom green mix with some ocean grey. Now I've jumped ahead here, but it's the same technique I've used as for the interior. The only thing different here is that I've added a custom Tamiya wash. This is a mixture of black and brown, and then this is blended in with some odourless white spirits. For the wheels, I've used the Montex masks and then applied a burnt iron over the black. Then I'll use a very thin khaki wash over these parts, and then I'll just leave that to dry. So I'm happy with where the wash is dried. And I've added a bit of mud. It's the same technique I use on the wheels on a Chinook build. I've shown this technique a few times on other builds, so there's no need to show it again. So the part I've been dreading is prising this wheel into or onto the leg as per instructions. Here goes. Well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. Just the top strut broken here, but that's an easy fix. I was going to add the lower wing necks, but I've decided I'm going to build up that glazed nose, which consists of all these parts here.